health and humorous.
Alright guys, so to start off this video, I'm going to go over how I make my protein shakes every morning, and then later on going into why I do it in the morning, and then the best way to get results from adding beef collagen and all that stuff to it. So basically to begin with, I gotta adjust this, hold on. Alright, so pretty much you're going to need a few things. Pea protein. I'm a big fan of the Dutch chocolate right now. I always use almond milk. Some people are asking about regular milk and coconut milk and neem milk. Whatever you want to do. Doesn't matter if you guys don't want to listen. Don't use almond milk, but that's fine. Great Lakes gelatin, beef, unflavored, collagen joint care. Beef high gelatin. This is the stuff to get. I'll have a link for it too. And then the other stuff that I said from the probiotics video, just hyperbiotics. And also various fruit. I've been using blueberries just because they've been on sale. I like blueberries, and you really don't need too much of them. So pretty much shake it up. Add. Usually go to that first line a little bit past. Don't need to do all almond milk. That's a lot of extra calories. You're usually getting enough calcium from just like the regular serving size. This is a little under a scoop. It's about even. Just do 1 scoop of the pea protein. Do 1 scoop of the prebiotics. And the reason I put in the milk first is if you don't have a good blender or a magic, even if you have a good blender or a magic bullet, it tends to coagulate and get really gross, especially if you add in this first, the gelatin. So I would highly recommend adding at least like water or milk or something to get into it first. And then just like a handful of blueberries just for a little bit of vitamin C, which again I'll get in later. And then 1 tablespoon of this is equal, I overspilled it a little bit, it's fine. 1 tablespoon is equal to 12 grams. Ideally you want around 15, but just for the sake of showing you guys. And then the rest water. And even like, you can, I think you should be able to see that. Even if you see that right now, and you've been using pea protein for a while, it doesn't quite like to mix in that easily. So that's what the magic bullet's for. So, how did I have this? Will stay up? Yeah. There we go. Real professional. I like it. Alright, so, yeah, and then the consistency, generally, it's not bad. You'll notice it's a little gritty. And if you add 2 scoops of this, it'll be like a pudding. I really wouldn't recommend it. It doesn't taste as good as it sounds. So yeah, that's basically the recipe. Like I said, you can supplement a different type of fruit or something you want with it. I'm going to get into it later, but the general breakdown is you want the study that was done. It's done with 15 grams of this, 50 grams of vitamin C, which they just supplemented from something like this, but this is 1,000, so it would be like none of this, something like that. And basically, the best way to do it is I found is a shake. That's what they kind of did in the study. You can also make gummies out of it if you want to like put it in like an ice tray and put water in it, and because it is gelatin. If you guys don't know how like Jello is made, or if you've never had bone broth or anything soup, it's essentially just that's what gelatin is. It's made out of horse bones. This is made out of beef hide. But this is, it sounds kind of gross, but the amino acids that are in this are not found in your whey. They're not found even in like raw, grass-fed, organic, whole foods beef. You kind of have to get it from something like this. So that's what this video is about. Alright guys, I know this has been a little late. Midterms have kind of screwed me over. They've been staggered, so 1 week I have midterms, the next week I have the next set. But nonetheless, here it is. So this is about collagen, beef gelatin. Kind of sounds a little bit gross, but I'm 90% sure this is going to be kind of the future of physical therapy and helping real athletes, and then probably even just irregular people like you, people like me, aren't professional athletes. They do work out, but your doctor, if any of you have ever had a sports injury, basically what happens is they'll tell you to stretch it, take it easy. They may send you to physical therapy, which is kind of like a meme, and they'll give you a massive prescription of ibuprofen and just tell you to take that. Yeah, it's going to relieve the pain, but it's certainly not going to fix the core issues. That's what they think physical therapy is for, but it's a whole thing. Physical therapists, if it's the same thing with doctors. If you stop going, if they heal you, they lose a customer. So what do you think is going to happen? However, with this, this is a study. It actually did just come out. Dr. Keith Barr from UC Davis, he teamed up with a couple of other people in Australia, and then one other school from the U.S. But you can follow Keith Barr on Twitter. I believe his @ is Muscle Science. He got in kind of early, so he got a pretty good @ but he is a wealth of knowledge. So basically, what it happens, this is going to be about muscle tendons. Now, the traditional science, which I think most of us have gone away from, is the larger the muscle, the stronger you are, which is typically true. But if you look at bodybuilders, like professional bodybuilders, yes, they're very strong. They can probably lift a ton of weight. But compared to power lifters or people that compete in a weight class like that, not quite as strong. The Winter Olympics don't have weightlifting, but if you ever go to the Summer Olympics and look at the people competing at a certain kilo, and then compare that with people at their weight size that are bodybuilders, it's no competition. Yeah, the bodybuilders are going to have bigger. How do I get in that frame? This is not a good shirt to make my arms look big. They're going to have bigger muscles cross sectionally, but they might not be able to bench or snatch as much as an actual power lifter athlete. So that's something to kind of keep in mind. I think that's one of the memes that's just being undone by regular people. The size of the muscle doesn't necessarily count as much as other things, and the other thing in this scenario is going to be tendons. So basically, what happens when you're lifting is everyone I believe has seen the muscular skeleton, where it's the muscles along the skeleton. They have like kind of the muscle strands. So what happens when you activate your bicep is they're called sarcomeres. Each sarcomere shortens, and what you would think is they would shorten longitudinally. So when you curl, they're starting from this and going this way. What's actually happening is it's starting from the side and going horizontally. And the reason that is, it's to actually protect your muscles. So one starts to activate, the rest in the line start to activate, and then the full contraction happens, and that's when, then after that happens, the tendon gets involved, and then makes it as stiff as a bone. One thing I do want to explain before I go a little bit further is you may know the terms tendon and ligaments. So tendons connect muscle to bone. Ligaments connect bone to bone. So your fingers, they're all ligaments. Your thigh tendons, the tendons in your calves, tendons in your arms, chest, those are all going to be actual tendons. So that's the difference there. What else do we got? And most of the force, actually, to kind of bring it back around to what I was saying earlier about size versus force, is most of the force is actually coming from your tendon. So you may have a bodybuilder, again, that's going to be the example that I'm going to. Although this stuff doesn't just apply to bodybuilding, it applies to pretty much anyone doing sports. If you're a cross-country runner, if you're a long-distance runner, it still applies to you because you're going to be doing stuff with your tendons, more so than any other muscle, really. That's how you get musculoskeletal issues, like you get tore ACLs, tore MCLs. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. But most of the force is coming from your tendon. Not really going to go too much into targeting how you work out your tendons, just because that's a whole other realm of things, but just a little background of how your muscles work and why collagen fixes them. So, after the sarcomeres contract, the tendon activates and makes it stiff. So to give you an idea, consider Velcro. When you have Velcro, like you can't tie your shoes, and you only have a little bit of Velcro down, you can kind of move that off pretty easily. But the more that the Velcro goes down until it's finally all flat with each other, it's all interlinked, it's very hard to shear them apart. Nearly impossible. So that's pretty much what happens when you have a weaker tendon. That's how you get sprains, that's how you get tears, that's how you mess your body up, is because the shear isn't protecting yourself, and that's what separates it. So when you're super stiff and you hit the ground, your tendon cannot extend because it's so stiff. So your active muscle must extend to absorb the tendon, or to absorb the impact the tendon can't. So to give you an idea, if you're running fast, you have your muscles already fully activated. They're fully full of blood. They're all pumped up. They're mostly contracted for the most part. And what's supposed to happen is once you hit the ground, that's where the tendon is supposed to take the force and transfer it into your bone. Well, if the tendon is already fully stiff, it's already stiff as a bone, and that's not to, like, an analogy. Like, the tendon pretty much is as strong as your bone, especially the closer it is to actually meeting the bone as it is versus meeting the muscle. It's nearly as tough as that. So if it's already fully stiff, fully contracted, then you transfer it to your muscle, and that's how you get your injuries. A good example of this, if any of you are ex-normies or current normies and you really follow football, this is something that I kind of noticed because I used to be really into the NFL because I was a Lions fan, which is a big mistake. But I would always watch the combine, always watch the draft. I was never much into college sports, but once the combine started to happen, I always found it interesting because when I was following it, I'm like, these guys are my age, and these guys are fucking going out there deadlifting 600, 650 pounds, just being insane beasts. They're going out there doing sprints. They're going out there doing plyometric jumps and jumping fucking 5 feet. They're monsters. So why I brought up the fantasy thing is as soon as a lot of these guys get drafted, especially as they're rookies, they'll go off to their training camps. They'll go off to the preseason, and without failure, especially with running backs and very active positions, you always saw a lot of injuries. They're very injury prone, and people would attribute that to, oh well, they're not ready. They're not used to like playing with that physicality. They're not used to playing with the other strong people, and it's like the difference between college and NFL is not much. Sure, some of the guys are going to be more top tier, the best of the class and stuff, but that's not enough of a difference to really cause MCL and ACL tears and stuff like that, muscular skeletal issues. So what Keith Barr started to look at was, well, what are they training versus what are they going to do? And this is where it kind of everything all ties in together and it all makes sense. So if you're doing a ton of training for 1 rep maxes and sprints and very burst movements. Yes, football is already a very, very fast burst movement. The plays are all 10 seconds, and it's very active during that 10 seconds, and then 30, 45 seconds of waiting around. But that's even still not as much burst heavy as it would be during like a combine scenario. So if you're training for a 1 rep max on your deadlift, and you're training for that from whenever the college season ends to when the draft begins, which I think is in July, I could be wrong. So basically end of, I guess, January until July, you're pretty much only training what your 1 rep maxes are, what your max strength is, the highest numbers you can get. So you do that, you go and get drafted, your tendons are super, super stiff because you want the max amount of force, right? You're not going to be using it for long distance running or anything. You're not going to be doing it for endurance training. You're going to be using it for that burst power, for that maximum amount of power that you can get out of your muscles. And of course, as we went over, that comes from your tendons. Now you get drafted, and 2 weeks later, 1 week later, you're off at training camp, and you're going back into your position. And now you're doing sprints for a long amount of time. You're doing running, conditioning, and you're playing against other athletes, and boom, now you have an MCL tear. And people are always wondering, well, okay, well, it's just because it's a different level of game and blah blah blah. And it's like, not really anymore. I mean, if you look at the numbers between college and NFL, they're about the same. 40-yard dash, they're about the same maxes. They're about the same. They're almost level. I mean, like, a lot of these kids are on gear, but there are superhuman athletes. Like, take Handig, for example. He's 6'6", and 250, and made D1 and never touched gear at all. So you have people like that. It's just like, oh, they're just competing against people like that now. It's just more of them. It's like, well, no, they're actually kind of doing a counterproductive type of thing because they're training for one thing for a sport that asks for a completely different thing. Same thing kind of happens in cross country too, or track rather might be a better example. Most track people, if they are fast and they're good at sprinting, then they'll do, the 200-meter dash or the 400-meter dash, and then they don't really do the longer distance running. And there's a good reason for that, because they're two different sets of muscles. So it's just a little bit of explanation to kind of give you an idea of tendon stiffness versus athletic difference. Yes, you want your tendons to be stiff, and you'll probably see a bunch of bodybuilders that are very flexible. I myself am very, very flexible. I can this isn't a joke, I can put my legs behind my head, I can do the splits actually, I can put my head behind my knees, I can palm the ground. It's very simple for me. I've always been able to do it, but I've always stretched and stuff too and took care of them. This is before I even got into collagen or gelatin or anything. So to kind of recap, stiffer tendons are better for performance but increase the risk of injury. The lateral transmission of force protects your individual muscle fibers from injury by linking them to their neighbors. And the compliant region of the tendon acts as a shock absorber and protects the whole muscle from injury. So really, this is kind of your body knows how to protect itself. Your body knows how to avoid injury, how to protect itself from tearing muscles, because if you tear a muscle, I mean, if you tore a muscle in the wild, you're on the hunt, and they didn't have cell phones or anything, they didn't have flares, you're kind of fucked. So your body kind of evolved to protect itself from these things. So, what you need to know about why this works, and then we're going to get into how it works and how it fixes it and what you should be doing. So your tendon is actually anaerobic. So that means that there is no blood flow to it. It's, I think, 60% water. So it's better to actually think of your tendon more like a sponge. I know sponges are very, you can squeeze them, you can use them as stress balls. That's kind of the opposite of what I told you about the being as strong as a bone, but it's a better analogy when I finish. So think of it more like a sponge. It's full of water. So when you activate your tendon, it gets rid of all the water that's in it and then reabsorbs whatever's in the blood. Or not the blood, but like water flowing through you and getting rehydrated. So it usually takes in a lot of enzymes, lysyl oxidase, which is kind of like lactic acid. Takes in a lot of sodium, takes in a lot of glycine, I believe. There's a few other enzymes that I think are on the next page. But it absorbs those, and that's going to be important for later. So the result is, those enzymes make new crosslinks. So you can think of they're making new Velcro loops, per se. So the more Velcro loops you have, the safer it's going to be. This is actually a huge, they use sugar as well. They use water, they use sodium to make these things. So, and vitamin C, that's the other one. So this is actually a big problem in type 2 diabetics because their muscles and their sugar, as we talked about in insulin, they don't work the same way as just a regular healthy person. Not that type 1 diabetics are unhealthy, but they're just kind of genetically screwed. So they have a lot of muscular skeletal issues because they're not able to form these crosslinks. So we're going to go over how to form them, how to protect yourself. Yes, okay. So this is, and then it just reiterates, this is why high speed, very fast movements are the best to build power. So if you ever watch Ripple Toe or subscribe to the starting strength stuff, they always talk about speed and strength, not high reps. They're more focused on strength. So they always want you to do the most you can, the quickest you can, and rightfully so, because that's going to build your tendons. My channel and us here, I think we're all kind of just looking to look better with our shirts off, so that's not quite as important, but that doesn't mean we can't take notice and help protect our bodies and protect your tendons to be safe, to be strong, and to improve recovery quickly. Because I have had, I've had tendonitis basically since I was 19, and I've tried everything with it, and it's just probably up until 2 years ago before I found a good physical therapy thing, a couple supplements that I think I've recommended before, Cissus quadrinis, and then started working towards repairing them. And then now, the collagen, I can actually see a huge change to it. So, another couple things is, most people would say, again, one of the other memes, and this meme is kind of in place, is, well, you can't really work on just like one type of muscle versus the rest. But what they found is in fencers and in badminton, which are two kind of esoteric sports, their plant legs, so the leg where they kind of plant on the ground and then they use their other leg to step and to I guess, joust or to reach for the, what's it called, the bird cock or something. Their plant leg is roughly 20 to 30% more muscle than their other leg. So that kind of does go to show that if you do, like if you've ever seen that like arm wrestler guy and his arm is massively bigger than the other, yeah, you can work out just one of your muscles. I don't really recommend it. I don't think anybody here is a jouster, fencer, or professional arm wrestler, but it does work that way. And the way that it works actually is with the whole cross-link Velcro analogy, is basically those cross links kind of form like almost like a tree ring. So the more muscle mass that's in your leg, the more cross links you have, so the bigger it's going to be. I already talked about when tendons stiffen over fast movements, they limit flexibility. So the stiffness of a connective issue, like a tendon or a ligament, is dependent on collagen content and the amount of crosslinks within the collagen. So this is where we're getting into the fix of things and how to fix it. So again, sugar helps increase those crosslinks, and I'm not talking about you need to take your collagen and then eat a cookie with it. It doesn't take much. Even though your tendons are very big, it doesn't take a lot of this. Even vitamin C too. It doesn't take a ton. That's why when I did the how to make the shake part of this, I didn't just use like a whole. I didn't dump blueberries in it. I have supplements that have 1,000 or 1 gram of vitamin C, but you don't need that much. You really only need small amounts. You need 50 milligrams of vitamin C, I think, was what they did in the study, to 15 milligrams of beef gelatin, which is collagen. And what I'm going to recommend is 25 milligrams of beef collagen, and then probably 100 grams of vitamin C. I mean, like if you're just eating fruit with it, that's fine. If you overdo it, there's no downside unless you're severely overdoing it. But there's a few ways you can do it. I myself prefer to do it in the protein shakes. I will warn you though, because I have added 2 tablespoons before, and your protein shake will turn into a pudding, and it's not like a good kind of pudding where it has like a pudding consistency. You're going to notice that the collagen does blend in, but not as well as you want it to. It does have kind of a granular type of taste to it, but ideally you'll want to do 1 tablespoon with that. If you want, you can actually just like get like an ice tray, add some water, freeze it, throw like some vitamin C in with it, or drink some juice with it, and you take it and then just eat it in the morning. You're good. Do that twice a day. But the important thing to do with it is you don't want to do it necessarily right before you work out. You also want to kind of space it out away from times where you are working out. As I mentioned, your tendons work like a sponge. So a lot of people will say, well, you can't just work out one part of your body. You can't lose fat on one part of your body. They're right. But when it comes to tendons, when it comes to ligaments, when it comes to those types of injuries, you actually can focus where you're sending your nutrients to, which is kind of like the balls of the argument. Is you can't just pick where you send the nutrients to. You can't just pick that, like, okay, I'm gonna focus really hard, and I did a really good leg workout. I'm gonna send all the protein to my thighs. It doesn't work like that. But if you're doing this collagen recovery thing, what they had the students do and what they had the athletes do was if they were long distance runners and they were experiencing platellar or whatever it is, the leg injury that they always get, or shin splints. What they'd have them do is they would have them take the gummy, wait a minute or two, and then jump rope for just 6 minutes, 5 to 6 minutes. That's it. That is not a long workout. And wait 6 hours to do their regular workout later, their long distance running, whatever long distance runners do. I've never worked out with them. I don't like long distance running. Or if they had weightlifters, power lifters, and they had tendonitis like I did, they would have them do something called a rice bath, which basically is what it sounds like. You have very little resistance. You're in a bath with a bunch of rice, and you're running your arm through it. And it doesn't sound very hard. It isn't very hard. I think it takes about 5% of your muscle resistance against it. But that 5% is enough to make your tendon excrete the water that's currently in it, and then absorb what's ever now going into your body, which is all the enzymes from the collagen. So you can use a stress ball, you can use resistance bands, very, very light resistance bands. The big idea here is to not get a huge, you're not trying to get a pump. You're not trying to get swole. You're not trying to get pumped off this. This is to be for a recovery thing only. It hasn't. I wouldn't say that it's the worst thing if you kind of do a little bit more of a workout. But the thing is after 5 to 6 minutes, you don't see any improvements. They did it for 10. They did it for 15 minutes. 5 to 6 minutes was the max. And that goes for legs, arms, shoulders, pretty much any place where the tendons are. That was the max. And you want to do this at least 6 hours before you work out. And of course twice a day. So if you do this after you work out, and your tendons are already all excreted and ready to take in the nutrients, then that's fine too. Let's see. So the amino acids in question that are in collagen and aren't really in whey, which is ironic because, or BCAAs, whatever your amino acid mean things are. Of course, we are pea protein, pro pea protein channel. There we go. That sounds a lot better. Those do have amino acids in them, and yes, BCAAs do too. But they don't have proline, they don't have lysine, they don't have hydroxyline, they don't have hydroxyproline, and they aren't enriched in gelatin, which is made from the tendons of a cow. So as long as you're doing this, I mean, you don't have to make the same shake I do. Like I said, you can make the gummies out of them and freeze them, or you don't even need to freeze them. I've just found it's a little bit easier to freeze them, so you can have them on the go. They're not really going to melt on you. I will warn you, they don't taste great. But again, this is one of those things where if you are experiencing not a serious injury, if you experience a serious injury, I would recommend still doing this, but you should also go talk to your doctor, of course. But if you feel onset of fatigue, soreness, you notice that you may be onset of tendonitis or any of those injuries, any of those musculoskeletal injuries, or you're even just switching from routines and you're going from a powerlifting routine, a strength gaining routine, to where you're just trying to hit a 1 rep max and it'd be done, into a hypertrophy routine. This is going to be good for recovery. This is something that I'd say to do at least once a day. Ideally do it twice a day, 15 milligrams in the morning, or you can do 25 and be done for the day. 15 milligrams in the morning, 15 milligrams at night. However you want to sort it up. I typically do 15 in the AM, 15 in the PM after I work out, and then on my way to work, since I have tendonitis, the big muscle, the big tendon that gets fucked with tendonitis starts right at your elbow and goes all the way down to here into your ring finger, and it sucks. It sucks really bad. You know, you'll know when you have it, and I would not wish tendonitis on my worst enemy. That's how fucking much it sucks. But you'll go from being able to I don't know, pick up a 5-gallon bucket of paint one day, and then the next day you're like, you'll look at like an old lady that's doing the same thing, and you're just in agony thinking about doing it. And this is going to be something to avoid it. So it's a simple fix. It's very cheap. I think the beef collagen that I'm going to recommend, it's Great Lakes collagen. I think it's like 14 bucks. I bought it probably last July, and I still have half of it left. Given I didn't take it all the time during that, from now to then, but even since I started taking it, I haven't really, a lot goes a long way. Or the bottle, I guess, I should say, goes a long way. So that's the go-to on beef collagen. And then some updates. We did the Stud AMA. Dr. Stud came by, answered your questions, and I do believe one of you guys recorded it, so big shout out to Wheat. You're awesome, because my computer can't record audio, as we've learned in a very fun way. So I'll have that uploaded to a SoundCloud type thing, and then I believe we also have the first AMA done. I have a second AMA planned with a neuroscience student, and I really hope to talk to him about the importance of sleep and a couple other things that he knows that I don't know. And then I think for the next video, we're going to do a mixture of, as I mentioned, sleep, and then just a couple other things that I've been thinking about for a while. Not really common questions anymore, but brown rice versus white rice, what the importance of that is, and just a couple other miscellaneous things. And then after that, I am going to be able to start bringing this little camera to the gym so I can show you guys all the videos that, or, well, all the lifts that Studs taught me that aren't on YouTube that help your I can't really see it. Help your inner pec development, help your lat development, the stuff that the I guess the pros don't want you to know. So that's what's coming up in the future. Again, I thank you all for your support. You guys are awesome. And if you have any questions, let me know. Either Discord or in the Patreon comment section or in the YouTube comment section. I'm also going to link this study that was referenced to this because they have some really good diagrams that will help you understand just how your muscles work. So again, thank you for watching, and until next time.